I wired my family $72,000 over 5 years, but they smirked and mocked me. I stayed silent and began planning their financial funeral. They handed me a mug that said, "Stop asking why. Just pay and smile." I smiled, and 24 hours later, their phones were blowing up, not with money, but with consequences. They were phoning in a panic. The following morning, my mother held up her wine glass. "Come on, it's funny," she said, an uncontrollable smile playing on her lips as the Easter centerpiece softly shaded her face. I sat there in silence, holding the mug that Chloe had just given me. "Stop asking why. Just pay and smile." Everyone chuckled. Dad laughed too from his side of the table. Chloe made a fictitious toast with her glass. She continued, "To our sponsor." Then, as if delivering the punchline she had been waiting all night to say, Mom added, "You're not our son, you're our sponsor." More than laughter, the words lingered in the air. I had recently sent $18,000 to pay for Mom's second root canal, Chloe's small fender incident that inexplicably required a whole bumper replacement, and their past-due mortgage. After cutting short my work trip to attend to their emergency, I hadn't even finished unpacking. And now this. "Chloe," I uttered, clutching the mug in my hands. "Where did you even find this?" She smiled and said, "Oh, I had it custom-made. Thought it fit. You're always stressing about why you're the one helping everyone. We just thought." First, I glanced at my mother, then at my father. Mom grinned. "Don't be so sensitive. You've always been the generous one." Dad never even raised his head from his phone. "It's just a joke. Relax." Correct. It was a joke. They joked last Christmas that since I essentially managed the household, I should deduct family expenses from my taxes, or how when I was promoted at work, they made a joke about upgrading their sponsor. I surveyed the table. Chloe was wearing her expensive pastel dress, which I bought for her after she claimed she couldn't afford an Easter-appropriate outfit. Mark, her fiancé, stuffed his face as if it were a free buffet, which it was. Mom was grinning as if she hadn't just used tears and shame to persuade me to settle her credit card bill. And Dad wasn't really there, as usual, unless someone needed funding, fixing, or signing something. Mom went on, "Isn't this nice? A real family holiday." It wasn't pleasant. It wasn't real at all. It was a show, and the entire show was sponsored by me. I gave them the smile they requested, and something silently and irrevocably broke inside me at that very instant. This wasn't always the case. Or perhaps it was, and I was simply too preoccupied with trying to be helpful to see the rot taking hold. I was raised to believe that love was based on favors, that being the one who could be relied upon meant being the one who was loved, that they would eventually look at me the way they looked at Chloe if I put in enough effort, gave enough, and solved enough problems. However, I was mistaken. In actuality, they had claimed Chloe from the beginning. She was their miracle, their pride, their evidence that they were correct. I was also a resource, a backup plan, a moving safety net, an instrument that beats. It began slowly, it always does. I covered Chloe's rent for 3 months after her first venture failed. I paid for Mom's dental work twice when it became critical. Guess who kept the lights on at home when Dad's old friend was unable to repay a loan? Me. Always me. They also gave me the impression that I was making up for something each time I stepped up, as if I owed them. If I was hesitant to send money, Mom would add, "You know, we gave up a lot to raise you." Dad once said, "We didn't ask you to be successful so you could hoard it all." Chloe had her own version too, in response to my inquiry about reimbursement for her auto insurance. "It's not like we're strangers. We're family. You know I'd help you if things were reversed." However, things were never reversed because I ensured they weren't. I sacrificed my own life to be the one who was never in debt, trouble, or need. 6 months ago, the first real crack appeared. Chloe called me, sobbing, regarding Mark's business. "It's falling apart," she cried. "If we don't cover the next round of equipment, he'll lose everything. Please, you know I'd never ask unless we were desperate." That following evening, I transferred $4,700. A week later, I saw her in a picture posted online from a posh winery, laughing, sipping wine, with Mark flashing a Rolex next to her. "Weekend vibes," read the caption. Well deserved. I remained silent. Instead, I rationalized. Perhaps it was sponsored, perhaps it was old, perhaps she needed the respite. However, the pictures continued. High-end footwear, brunches, a new iPhone. And then came the Easter meal, the mug, the derision, the sponsored joke. After that night, I started going through my accounts. I went back 5 years. $72,850. That was the amount I had given them. Given, not loaned. Gifts, bailouts, transfers, payments, emergency coverage. My hand trembled when I saw the total. I called my bank. 3 joint cards were frozen. I updated all my online passwords and established a new savings account, transferring my remaining funds there. I received a text from Mom that evening. "Hey honey, can you send $600? Forgot to pay the HOA and they're threatening a fine. Just till Monday." I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, Chloe texted, "Mom says you're mad. Is this about the mug? Come on, don't be weird. It's just a joke." Nothing had changed. Then Mom texted again at midnight. "We didn't mean anything by it. You know we appreciate you. Don't make this a thing." I gazed at the display. Appreciate me? Like when they thanked me for driving 6 hours in the snow to pick up Dad from the emergency room because Chloe needed to go to the spa. Or like when they excluded me from the Maui family vacation because you wouldn't want to spend money on something like that, right? No, this wasn't appreciation. It was addiction. They were addicted to the version of me that paid quietly and asked for nothing in return. Withdrawal, I decided, would be cruel. Chloe arrived at my flat early the next morning. As soon as I opened the door, she walked in like she owned the place. "Seriously?" she said abruptly. "You're ignoring us now." I leaned my back against the counter. "You mean like how you ignored my last raise, my last birthday, and every time I mentioned I was overwhelmed?" She laughed. "You're making a scene over a joke mug." "No," I replied. "I'm making a scene over $72,000 and zero respect." She stopped talking. She blinked. "What are you talking about?" "I've tracked every penny I've sent over the last 5 years," I replied. "Every emergency, every loan you never repaid, every phone call that ended with me feeling like I owed you something." Defensively, Chloe crossed her arms. "We're family. You're supposed to help." "No," I replied. "I did help. I helped you stay comfortable while you called me uptight. I helped Mom pay off her cards while she called me paranoid. I helped Dad with his projects while he told people I was cold." She rolled her eyes. "This is so dramatic. What? You're cutting us off now? Going to punish us?" I grinned. "No," I muttered. I stopped asking why. And for once, I smiled while saying it. I couldn't get that smile off my face for the rest of the evening. Apparently, word got out quickly, because the next evening, I received an invitation for a family Zoom call with the subject line, "Let's clear the air." It was sent by Chloe, of course. Not being at the heart of the resolution was something she could never tolerate. The call began around 7 p.m. sharp. Chloe exuded strategic calm with her immaculate appearance. Mom affected concern, all pearls and worried glances. Dad was, as usual, silent and uninvolved. Mark hung in the background, his shoulders partially out of sight, as though worried guilt might be contagious. "Hey, there he is," exclaimed Chloe. "Glad you could make it. We figured it's time to move past this, right?" Mom nodded. "Of course," she said. "It's the Easter season. Time for healing, family first." With ease and control, I grinned. Glad we're all on the same page. Chloe launched into a self-congratulatory speech about how sticking together makes us stronger and how tension isn't healthy. It sounded like background jazz to me. Beneath the table, I unlocked my phone and accessed my banking app. Chloe was in the middle of saying something about re-establishing confidence when I opened the insurance dashboard. Chloe's 2021 Toyota Corolla, registered under my name, paid monthly, automatic payment, $249. I selected Cancel, Confirm Policy. Then I changed tabs to the DMV website. Transfer ownership to Chloe. Submitted. Back to banking for a last flourish. Transfer $1 to Chloe. Message: I will never give you another dollar. Frame this. Click. Done. Her cell phone rang. She frowned, blinked, and looked down. "What is this?" I took a sip of my tea. "I just took care of something important." Mom narrowed her eyes. "What kind of important?" I grinned and leaned in. "Don't worry. You'll feel it by tomorrow." After that, I unmuted myself, selected Leave Meeting, and watched their bewildered, frozen faces disappear like vapor. My phone chimed, verifying everything. Money sent, insurance canceled, title transferred. Additionally, a legal email landed in Chloe's inbox, informing her that she was now the proud owner of her own mess. At precisely 9:17 the next morning, Chloe's vehicle vanished from her driveway. I know this because she texted me immediately. "Chloe, did you cancel my policy?" "Chloe, seriously? My car is gone. It got towed, Chloe. This is insane. Call me now." I didn't respond. An hour later, my mother started phoning. Next, my father. Then Mark. 8 missed calls in less than an hour. I knew what was coming next. "We need to talk," Dad texted. "Sunday, 5 p.m. family only. No excuses." Excellent. I arrived without a smile, guilt-free, and holding no regrets. I knew they would all be there, and they were. My mother, arms folded like a disgruntled educator. My father, hands clenched on his lap, tense. Chloe, hair disheveled, phone gripped like a weapon, no car keys in sight. Mark, silent, pale-eyed, and flitting nervously off to the side. "Sit," Dad muttered. I remained standing. Mom yelled, "You think this is funny? What you did to your sister? The humiliation? The danger?" I arched an eyebrow. "Danger? You mean the danger of finally making her responsible for her own property?" Chloe jumped in, her voice shrill and scared. "You had my car towed?" "No," I replied calmly. "You had your car towed. I just stopped paying for it." I took a thick, well-organized, color-coded folder from my bag. $72,850, I said, placing it flat on the coffee table. "That's how much I've given this family over the last 5 years." Everyone fell silent. "I'm not asking anymore. I'm demanding repayment." Mom laughed, a harsh, trembling sound. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I am," I replied. "For the first time in my life, I'm dead serious." I opened the folder. Inside were well-highlighted bank statements, transfer logs, Zelle screenshots, and auto payment records. "I've split the amount between the 3 of you," I said. Mom, $23,700. Chloe, $38,600. Dad, $10,550. "I expect a payment schedule. I'll give you 90 days. Dad got to his feet, his voice low and irate. "You think you can treat your family like debtors?" "No," I replied. "I think you've been treating me like an ATM with a guilt complex. I'm just doing the math." Chloe rolled her eyes. "So what? You're keeping score now? You said you were doing all this out of love. And you said you respected me." I countered. "Then you gave me a mug that said, 'Stop asking why. Just pay and smile.'" I grabbed another document and slid it toward them. "Remember that emergency line of credit I opened for the family 3 years ago? The one Mom called just a formality?" I tapped the signature line. "It's legally binding. So yes, I can sue." The room was still. Mark muttered something under his breath. "What?" yelled Chloe. He glanced at me, then back at her, his voice wavering. "I told you this would happen. I told you he'd push back." "You told him?" she shrieked. "Are you kidding me?" "I trusted you," he retorted. "You said he'd never push back, that he was too soft." Once more, Mom jumped in. "You're overreacting. You're going to destroy this family." "No," I replied coolly. "I'm just closing my accounts." I then took out the printout of the $1 transfer. I let it fall onto the table. "Transaction note. I will never give you another dollar. Frame this." I walked toward the door and added, "And if you think this is betrayal, you haven't even begun to understand what losing me actually means." Nobody spoke as I walked away. For the first time, they couldn't. The quiet was deafening. After I left that living room, my folder in hand, and their jaws on the floor, no one reached out. No angry texts, no guilt trip calls. Chloe didn't even post a single passive-aggressive meme. It was bliss. My phone was silent for the first time in years. It was a quiet earned, not imposed by their ignoring me. I wasn't frozen, I was free. While I'd love to say I moved on immediately, doubt began to creep in 3 days after the showdown. I was standing in front of the oat milk section at the grocery store, debating whether to switch brands to save money, when the thoughts came. What if I was too harsh? What if I could have handled it better? Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was Chloe. "Just so you know, Mom's blood pressure is up. She's blaming the stress you caused." There it was, rearing its head like a snake. The old cycle of emotional coercion, guilt, and blame. This time, though, I didn't flinch. I typed back one word. Blocked. And I meant it. The consequences were immediate. 2 days later, Mom showed up unexpectedly at my apartment building. I only knew because the front desk buzzed me. She says she's your mother and it's an emergency. I didn't even ask what kind. Tell her the sponsor is out of service, was all I said. But their desperation wasn't the most surprising thing. The pleasure I felt was. I started going back to the gym, sleeping better, cooking meals without background tension simmering on my phone. Browsing my financial app became enjoyable. It felt as though my flat had held ghosts I hadn't recognized until I finally expelled them. Then one evening, I received an unexpected message. Not from Chloe, not from my parents, but from Mark. Mark, can we talk? I know this is weird. I stared at the screen for a while. Was it bait? Was he just a puppet? I couldn't be sure, but I was intrigued. Speak. Mark, not asking for a favor. Not trying to guilt you. Just talk. Mark, I get it. I really do. I have something to tell you. From me, not them. We agreed to meet the next day at a coffee shop, neutral territory. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He sat down and began. I'm not here to defend Chloe. Good, I replied, because I'm not interested in hearing it. He nodded. I'm here because I think I'm done too. That got my attention. I watched her lie to your face. He continued, running a hand through his hair. I watched your parents let it happen. I kept waiting for them to show some decency, but they never did. Now she's talking about suing you for emotional distress. I blinked. Seriously? He nodded. She's spiraling. Honestly, I don't think she believes it'll work. She just wants to punish you. I leaned back. And where do you stand in all this? He met my gaze directly. I'm out. I'm done financing delusion. I've already spoken to a lawyer. We're separating. That confirmation did more for me than any punch she could have thrown. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner, he continued. I should have. You were the only one holding everything together. I was just trying to stay afloat myself. We sat in silence for a moment. Then, just before I left, he handed me an envelope. There's a check inside for $1,000, he said. Memo, toward what they owe you. I know it's not much, but it's from me, not them. I figured you deserved to know someone saw what was happening. For the first time in years, I felt the sting of genuine tears behind my eyes, not from anguish, but from validation. That evening, I accessed the family debt spreadsheet on my laptop. Next to Mark's name, I wrote, paid $1,000, with sincerity. Then I renamed the file closure_progress. I poured myself a glass of good wine, the kind I used to save for vacations invariably marred by forced smiles and tight budgets. This time, I drank to myself, to tranquility, to boundaries, to the freedom of having no sponsors. 3 months went by, 90 days since I left that house, dropped the folder on their coffee table, and broke my silence. I hadn't seen them since. The calls ceased around the 4th week, the texts dwindled by week 6. According to mutual friends, Chloe has reportedly been taking time to heal, which I presume is code for finding a new fool to fund her lifestyle. I didn't care. The anger was gone. They could never comprehend that. When I said, I'm done, it wasn't furious. It meant finished, like a concluded chapter, an internal door bolted shut. I was no longer a sponsor. I was a man with a future free from their shame, pleading, and the baggage of emotionally bankrupt people bearing my last name. I moved out of state for a new job, better pay, less chaos. The new apartment felt clean, free from the echoes of past frantic phone calls pleading for money. I joined a boxing gym. Finally, I could fight back, not against them, but for myself. My schedule was my own. My money was my own. My energy was my own. I made friends, the kind who remembered your birthday without presenting bills disguised as emotional needs, the kind who didn't always want something. I even started dating again someone calm, someone kind. Someone whose first question was, how can I support you today? Not, can you help me, just this once? For the first time in a decade, life wasn't just better, it was real. Then last Sunday, precisely 90 days after the confrontation, something unexpected happened. I got a deposit notification, $1 from Mom. Memo, figured you'd want this to frame the mug properly. I stared at it for a full minute. Bait? A joke? A passive-aggressive attempt to lure me back in? Then another alert pinged, $1 from Dad. Memo, interest. Here I owe you. 30 minutes later, $2.50 landed from Chloe. No message, just the petty amount. It was unbelievable, absurd, symbolic, petty. Maybe they were mocking me. Regardless, for the first time in weeks, I burst out laughing. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee because I suddenly realized they were finally doing something I'd asked for repeatedly. They were paying me back. It was the tiniest, most reluctant, most pathetic repayment imaginable, but it was a start. Maybe that scared them most, not the money or the silence, but the fact that I had finally forced them to face consequences. But that wasn't the real twist. The twist came later that evening as I enjoyed a beer, admiring the city lights from my balcony. My phone buzzed again. Not a text message, but a bank notification. $3,000 deposited. Sender, Chloe. Memo, start. I blinked. Refreshed the app. Checked again. It was real. $3,000. No justification, just that single word. I knew instantly this wasn't an olive branch. It was fear. Fear that I might actually sue. Fear that I wasn't bluffing. Fear that she had lost her power over me because she, and all of them, had fundamentally misjudged me. Now they were trying to buy back the version of me that paid the bills and stayed silent. Only this time, it was too little, too late. I took a screenshot and saved it in the debt tracking folder. Then I renamed the folder again. Closure_confirmed. The next morning, I donated $1,000 of Chloe's $3,000 payment to a local women's shelter. I transferred the remaining $2,000 to a new savings account I named rebuilt_from_ashes. Because this story wasn't about retaliation or punishment, it was about recovery. I had recovered my time, my money, my self-respect, and above all, my peace. Standing in my new, bright apartment, filled with plants and free from any trace of coercion, I looked around and murmured, "This is what feels like home."